Greetings, curious acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. Darth Plagueis was known as a Sith that had orchestrated the power over life and death. His legendary ability to manipulate the midichlorians was what cemented him as one of the most powerful Sith in the entire Order's history. Whenever Palpatine is explaining the tragic tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise to Anakin in the Opera House, we can see on his face the satisfaction that he took in the ending of his master's life. As he speaks the words, ironic, he could save others from death but not himself. You can literally see the immense pleasure and almost amusement that Sidious feels even to this very day.
Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
At this point in time, it had nearly been 12 years since the day that he killed Darth Plagueis, and he still looked upon it with great pride. What is interesting to many though, is how exactly did Sidious manage to kill someone who had essentially figured out the secret to life and death? If Plagueis was truly able to control the very aspect of nature, and was so powerful that Sidious waited until he was asleep to make his move, why couldn't he have defended himself? What exactly caused the death of Darth Plagueis? Well, my friends, for those of you who haven't read the Darth Plagueis novel, this video is for you. First though, in anticipation of Black Friday, there's a big sale on the Star Wars merch page, where basically everything is 40% off. At checkout though, if you use code WAVE, you'll get an additional 15% off your entire order. But now my friends, let us open this holocron and begin. Plagueis was extremely powerful in the Force, and although he ultimately detested combat, he was quite adept at it, and no one who he faced in battle could ever seem to stand a chance against him. And Darth Plagueis was very much an underrated combatant. His powers and knowledge in the Force was far beyond what a good many Sith had achieved in their own lifetime, even those that focused on combat. However, he kept all of this under wraps and decidedly used his charismatic power as a political figure, an entrepreneur, to secure his grip on the galaxy and his hidden network of power. Now obviously, being in any sort of a political sphere will earn you rivals, especially when concerning galactic politics. Business and politics were a battleground just as ruthless as that on the front lines of war, and in both cases, people can be killed. Plagueis earned a rich repertoire of people who wanted him killed, and although there have been several attempts made on Plagueis' life, none were ever successful, except for the one that nearly was. And no, we aren't talking about Sidious. This was many years prior to Sidious' betrayal, when Higo Damask, aka Plagueis, was still very much in the public eye, and was currently doing all of his own dealings. A near fatal mistake. It would happen when Higo Damask was a part of a secret ceremony that was being held by the important political figures of the galaxy. It was a sort of underground society of all of the most important people, and Damask, as well as one other, Larsh Hill, were being initiated into the fraternity. When the initiation was over, however, one of the members literally decapitated Larsh Hill, and the rest of the members present threw off of their cloaks to reveal themselves as Maladian assassins. Now, the Maladian assassins were no joke. Maladians were a cult of highly skilled humanoid assassins from the Maladi system, known to honor all of their contracts, and they have just killed the other person in the room with Higo Damask, Darth Plagueis. The Maladian assassins were also familiar with the Ikachi martial arts, which were created to counter the effects of Force wielders. The assassins threw razor discs at the rest of the people in the room, decapitating them all instantaneously. Despite being a Dark Lord of the Sith, the sudden razor disc attack indeed caught Darth Plagueis himself off guard, and although he managed to avoid being decapitated, the disc managed to inflict a terrible wound on Plagueis. The disc flew at him and cleanly sliced off a considerable amount of his lower half of his face, as well as his trachea. However, Plagueis would not go down without a fight. Revealing himself and using the Force, he kept the wound closed while lashing out with the dark side and sending many of the assassins to their grave. However, his heavy injuries impeded a lot of his ability to use the Force at the time. Otherwise, he would have made short work of the assassins. Eventually, Palpatine would arrive and rescue his master before getting him medical attention. Following this, the Sith would take revenge, as Sidious himself would personally see to the man who ordered the attack. However, the damage was done, and this was decades before Plagueis would have perfected the manipulation of midichlorians and the ability to prevent death. Darth Plagueis was forced to wear a respirator mask for the rest of his life, and by the time he mastered his abilities, the damage was permanent. This was the real secret to Plagueis' demise. Now, fast forwarding to the fateful night at Palpatine's suite and the death of Darth Plagueis, both Sith Lords were celebrating their victory at Palpatine having won the Chancellorship election. They drank quite a bit of wine, and Palpatine incessantly continued to recite his acceptance speech until Plagueis was put to sleep. An interesting thing to note here, Palpatine had actually grabbed his cloak and was about to leave, allowing his master to just sleep on the sofa in peace. However, the dark side called to Darth Sidious right as he was at the door, and it whispered to him that the time was now. Darth Sidious then stood over his master in slumber, and immediately began to fry the respirator that he needed to continue breathing with Force lightning. Plagueis did attempt to fight back against his apprentice, but Palpatine was too fast and kept sending wave after wave of Force lightning at Darth Plagueis. And because Plagueis couldn't even catch a breath of his own, there was no way he could gather the Force as he very quickly was dying, and he needed the Force instantly, something that Darth Sidious would not allow. Manipulating the midichlorians was something that still required a lot of focus, and at the current moment, his focus was on trying to keep himself from dying. However, it was all for naught, as Sidious simply let out all of his hatred in one final speech, before choking the life out of his master once and for all. And thus, the end of Darth Plagueis came. This is what truly ended the life of Plagueis the Wise, an assassination attempt gone sideways, and his apprentice taking full advantage of this one weakness that Plagueis had. Well, my friends, what do you think of this story? If you haven't read the Darth Plagueis novel yet, or have been considering it, I highly recommend you check it out, as it is my personal favorite novel in all of Legends. Let us know what you think about this in the comments down below. And as always, my friends, be weary, and may the Force be with you.